Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Typical City. This is your latest Manchester City news and transfer news. Manchester City and Pep Guardiola about to get their man, their main target, Josko Gvardiol. It sounds likely, and Calvin Phillips, could he be on his way out of the club with a potential rival rumoured to be in for a loan move for Calvin Phillips, which is understandable considering circumstances and his game time not quite being up to the minutes that he would probably like to have achieved last season. But Josko Gvardiol, the only place to start. 85 million. A lot of the talk is about the value, and it seems to be the formality now whenever City go in for a player. The figures are the first thing that everyone outside of the club, the media, the opposition fans, rival fans, that's all they really want to talk about, is how much are City spending. Those scumbags spending money again. How dare they spend their treble-winning, monstrous transfer kitty that we earned. We earned that money, and we've got 700 million revenue in the bank to enjoy as well. So that is our money. We can do what we want with it. Thank you very much. And are we about to go and spend 85 million? The deal has not been agreed. It sounds like personal terms are very much agreed. He very much has stated, in fact, it wasn't even his words, it was through the sporting director, Max Eberl, I think that's how you pronounce it, but the man himself, Max that is, has said this. He has said, Gvardiol and his agents gave us their desire to move to Manchester City. We are in talks with City. Yes, for 100 million euros plus bonuses, Gvardiol will end up in Pep's strong hands. The value of the deal would make Gvardiol the most expensive defender in history, but it might take a few more days. So it sounds like RB Leipzig and City still have a few things to work out. There were complications a couple of years ago where Spurs were in for him. They never actually formally placed a bid, but Chelsea came in very late in the transfer window of last summer, and Gvardiol was given assurances that he was going to stay, and then RB Leipzig said, actually, no, we're thinking about selling you, and then the deal never materialised, and Gvardiol was left up in the air, to and fro in between the idea of playing in the Premier League and not. And he's openly stated that in February that he sees himself in the Premier League. I do think that's with the intention of playing at the top of the Premier League, i.e. Manchester City. So he's made himself very clear, but there's no deal has been agreed yet. We don't want this to drag out. That is the worst case scenario, is going towards the end of the transfer window with no deal being agreed. We want to get him in, train with the squad as much as possible, get a pre-season under his belt so we can take that into the following season, into the upcoming season, and utilise what we hope Pep Guardiola's tactics are going to be, similar to the end of last season with three at the back, or potentially Gvardiol playing in defensive midfielder. The ability this guy has on the ball, he is the complete package. So there's an element to his game that stands out against all our other centre-backs, and we do have quite a few of them. In fact, in The Guardian, Greg Bukowski said something in jest. He was joking, but there was an implication in there. Greg of the Bukowski of The Guardian said, with only Emerick Laporte, Ruben Diaz, Franz Beckenbauer, and he crossed that out as a little joke, John Stones, Manuel Akanji, and Nathan Ake as centre-back options, you can see why Pep Guardiola is worried. That was obviously said in jest. He's being sarcastic, but there's an implication there. The layman, the uneducated reader is going to look at that and go, you know what? He's right. City has got all these defenders and they're buying another one. Oh, ruining football. There was an implication. Even though he's joking, there's still something in that. But looking at all those defenders, Laporte, Ruben Diaz, John Stones, Manuel Akanji, Nathan Ake, there is an elegance to all of them. All of those players, they're not shy of a tackle. Ruben Diaz and Manuel Akanji and Ake, they're tough tackling. John Stones is more on the elegant side. Laporte in particular, he's very, he's like a Rolls Royce the way he glides across the pitch. I think Gvardiol's got that in his locker, but there is an other side to his game. He looks like a bulldog, a terrier, Nicolas Otamendi vibes. And although Otamendi was far from good enough to be good on the ball and continue under Pep Guardiola, Pep spoke so highly of him, of how the amount of goal line clearances, namely that one at St James's Park, I'll never forget that, where he was just backtracking, and then just heading it off the line and falling into the goal. The amount of times that guy would put his face and body and head, and he put himself in the firing line. And that's what you need sometimes, in particular in the Premier League, that warrior, that soldier that'll just do anything for the team. Even if it doesn't look nice, it's not glamorous, it's ugly, but it's ugly defending sometimes that gets you 3 points. And Gvardiol looks like he's that sort of player that he had to wear a face mask for a period of time last season, didn't he, due to his face getting his broken nose. So that's the type of player that we're signing, the complete package. And Pep went on about how much he thinks the treble was founded, the foundation of our treble winning season was built on these defenders being so assured at the back. And we're now adding to that and sticking with the soldier vibes. There's even a clip on social media doing the rounds now of Gvardiol celebrating as Nkunku gets a goal for RB Leipzig last season, and a pint glass makes its way over to this crowd of players, and Gvardiol's going mental, and he runs up and he sees it and he fucking headbutts this pint glass and just goes, goes mental. That is he got a bit of a screw loose, and I like it. I like someone who's got a bit of a screw loose, doesn't care about getting hurt, crosses that white line and he'll bleed for the team. That's what you want. You want that. And I'm not convinced the likes of Aymeric Laporte and I mean, in particular, John Stones and Aymeric Laporte, they're not that type of player. They are more elegant, more ball-playing centre-backs. But what does this mean for Aymeric Laporte? Is he on his way out? The strongest rumour I've heard so far is Villa. But the same guy from The Guardian was also suggesting Juve and Arsenal, so take that with a pinch of salt. Arsenal, I cannot see City doing business with Arsenal, especially Aymeric Laporte, and strengthening their already very strong centre-back pairing of Gabriel, and they're going to add Timber and Saliba. Adding Laporte to that, yeah, we're making them genuine title challengers, and we did our best last season by giving them Gabriel Jesus and Zinchenko. So I think City will have learnt the lesson to not overly be too complacent about the idea of selling players that are understudies to the first teamers and bench players and squad rotation players to local rivals that could flourish in their squad and make them title challengers. And Laporte could be another one that could do that. Villa, for me, suits us because that's no direct threat. It would be nice to see him at Villa. I think he'd do a good job there. He'd fit right in. He'd be a big fish in a reasonably sized pond. Certainly not the size of our pond or Arsenal, but it would be sad to see him go. But I think one of them's got to go. And out of all of those defenders that I've listed there, Aymeric Laporte probably got the least amount of minutes out of all of those guys. But I have to stress that no agreement has been made yet, which is what we want to avoid, dragging this out and ending up with Laporte. And we clearly had intentions, therefore, of getting rid of Laporte. He'll know that, and he'll go into next season. If we didn't sign Gvardiol and we end up keeping Laporte, we'll go into next season with a player that's like, well, you didn't want me. You didn't want me. So now, how hard should I work for you, knowing that you didn't want to work for me? I don't think he'd be like that. I do think we have the utmost professionals working for City in this club. Bernardo Silva, he wanted to leave last season. There was stronger rumours than this season for him. With Gundogan going to Barcelona, I'm not convinced Barcelona have got the bank balance to go and pay for Bernardo Silva right now. So where does he go? PSG, Saudi Arabia are apparently readying a bid. And I mean, if he respects his career, Bernardo Silva, no way, absolutely no way he should be going to the Saudi rate. He's got so much to offer. He shouldn't be going to the Saudi league. But so if we're stuck with Aymeric Laporte, there is those question marks that will need answering. I do think this one's going to go over the line, though. I highly doubt that City will let this one drag out. We rarely break the bank. We do tend to walk away from most deals, but I think Pep will be twisting the arm of Khaldoon Mubarak and asking Mr. Sheikh Mansour for a rewritten cheque with whatever figure they are asking for, but without taking it too far, of course. But he wants his man. He's adamantly wanting this man. And is he worth £85 million is the big question. City fans and other clubs are very much asking that question right now. I mean, you sign Declan Rice, Arsenal, yet to happen. But when that happens, it's all about the player. When Liverpool go and spend a large sum on Virgil van Dijk. It's all about the player. They never spoke about 75 million. They're not talking about 105 million for Declan Rice. They're talking about the player. City signed Gvardiol. Is he worth 85 million? 85 million, most expensive defender in the world. 5 million more than Harry Maguire. No one even questioned Harry Maguire's value at the time. It was talking about he's a good player though, good future England captain. They've signed a cracking player there. They're not talking about the figures when it comes to others, but they will when it comes to Gvardiol. But the question is, he's a 21-year-old, so you can look at that in two ways. As a 21-year-old, 85 million is a lot of money to be spending, but there's the likelihood of him turning into a world-class player, and City's recruitment staff and their belief in this guy is clear as day. And we tend to break the bank for players that we genuinely believe in, and he fits that bill, and he's got every possibility of becoming one of the greatest centre-backs and versatile centre-backs, left-back, centre-back, defensive midfielder. He has the potential to be one of the best in the world, and at 21 years old, if we keep him till he's 30, you're looking at less than £10 million a year. So that sounds like an absolute bargain over the course of the time. If we keep him for 9 years and keep him until he's 30, maybe even 32, you're talking about like £7 or £8 million per year at that price. And then it starts to look like an absolute steal, doesn't it? Really depends on how far he goes into his City career and how much he evolves under Pep Guardiola. And that's the caveat with every single transfer that City sign is you're not just signing for City and therefore you're joining a great team. You're joining Pep Guardiola, who can take your game to other levels. So even players like Gabriel Vega that we're rumoured to be in for, that he looks good, potential is there. Same with Gvardiol. There's very much more of a finished article, but with still room to improve. And that's when Pep steps in and brings your level to other games. But there are other players that we could be going for. There are other players that don't quite break the bank, and City have got this pattern of lately in particular, we do tend to be targeting finished articles. I remember a couple of years ago, I preferred the transfer model of 2 or 3 years ago. Bernardo Silva, at the time when we signed him, was a very much an unknown figure of around 40 plus million we ended up spending him. Edison, a very unknown figure, 30 odd million we signed Edison for. Even Kevin De Bruyne from Wolfsburg at 50 million now looks like an absolute bargain. But he wasn't so much of an unknown figure, Kevin De Bruyne at Wolfsburg, but he wasn't like the heights of what he is now. And that's what City have done so well, is sign these 40, 50, 30, 40, 50 million pound players and elevate their game, so we know that if you come in to buy for them, you're now doubling. We've doubled their value, at least doubled their value. 50 million for Kevin De Bruyne. Right now, obviously the age factor, but if you go in for Kevin De Bruyne 2 years ago, imagine if you wanted to sign Kevin De Bruyne 2 years ago, you've got to be looking at 100 to 150 million for Kevin De Bruyne, and that makes £100 million profit, and we got years out of him. And that's a hypothetical situation, but that's my point is, could we change our transfer model a little bit and start targeting the lesser players and evolve them a little bit more, not break the bank for every player? They don't have to be the finished article. But that's what's so good about Gvardiol, is there is room for improvement. He is already a world-class player, and there's plenty of room for improvement because he's just 21. So for me, this could be an absolute fantastic signing. And why wouldn't you want to sign for City? We spanked them 7-0. He did actually score against us, of course, in the Champions League with a towering header. He's only 6'1", but what a leap that was, smashing that into the back of the net against us to equalise at their ground. And then we go and smash them 7-0, which I'm hoping is no reflection on his game, more towards how Leipzig played. But Leipzig on the whole as well, they're getting ransacked, absolutely ransacked right now. And Cuckoo, Szoboszlai, Gvardiol, that's the spine of their team that's just been ripped out completely for a very large sum. So they're going to be laughing straight to the bank. But how are the fans feeling? I mean, Nkunku, they've signed an unbelievable player there, Chelsea. Szoboszlai looks incredible. He looks like another complete package, a very good player. And for me, I think Liverpool are going to be the main challengers, looking at the way they're approaching the market. They're also in for Lavia, which relates to City. So you're talking about the Liverpool midfield, which is the core of their team, is very much the problem of their team last season, with Henderson and Fabinho looking very aged. And bringing in Lavia to sit behind the likes of McAllister and Szoboszlai all of a sudden, And that's propping up behind Núñez, who's yet to hit the heights, but he could very well change. Second season syndrome could kick in for him, as well as Diaz, and we know Salah is going to be 25, 30 goals a season. They're danger men. Liverpool are the ones we're going to have to watch out for next season. They're the ones that really, really worry. In particular, the activity, the transfer activity that they're showcasing in the midfield. And they're brewing a storm at Anfield, and it worries me. It really, really worries me. And then Calvin Phillips, with Gvardiol coming in, does that mean that, John Stones is the defensive midfielder at the minute alongside Rodri? Gvardiol can do that job. We could ask others. I mean, it's hard to suggest that like De Bruyne or Foden could drop so deep, but Calvin Phillips on loan to Newcastle, I'm not sure has got legs yet. I think it would be harsh to get rid of him just yet. But that is the rumour so far with a loan to Newcastle. They're keeping an eye on him, I believe, to see if any other events unfold at City. If we go in for another midfielder, there is potential for him to go out on loan. But I think he's been a letdown so far. Obviously, he's had very few minutes on the pitch to really prove himself, which is why I think he deserves a second season, because it's harsh to judge someone on so little time. But on the time that I have seen of him, it's not been impressive, to be honest. He's not been ripping up trees, and he looks a bit laboured at times. He looked like he wanted to take an extra second on the ball. And in City, you don't have that. You've got to you approach your centre-backs to receive the ball facing Ederson, and you've almost got to have it first time, out wide, out left, out right, whatever you've got to do, you've got to make sure you're assured. And he seems to receive that ball and take his time, Calvin Phillips, and want to make sure he does everything right. And taking that extra half second can mean they can nick the ball off you in the Premier League. They'll close you down. And Rodri perfected that last season. The way he was receiving the ball. And that's the thing. Phillips has got Rodri to look up to in training every day. So watch what he does, learn from the man, and improve your game. So there's no reason why I think we should be getting Calvin Phillips, because injuries could hit and we could be needing Calvin Phillips, in particular if we get into the in the FA Cup and the League Cup, and if we draw lower league teams, Calvin Phillips can step up and do a job against lower league teams, surely. So for me, I think we keep him. But Gvardiol, Lavia to Liverpool as well, that's a bit of a concern for me. Calvin Phillips to Newcastle, it is heating up. The transfer market is warming up nicely. But Blues, get in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all the transfer activity. Is Gvardiol worth it? That's the question I want answering. Do you think he is? Get in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Typical City is the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.
This is Typical City now. Holding